Indigenous medicine and healing practices have been used by indigenous peoples for thousands of years. These practices include traditional healing methods, herbal remedies, spiritual guidance, and other holistic approaches to health and well-being. Recently, there has been a growing movement among indigenous communities, both in the United States and abroad, to reclaim these practices and to use them to support the health and well-being of indigenous peoples. Reclaiming indigenous medicine and healing practices is an important part of honoring and preserving the knowledge and traditions of indigenous peoples. Indigenous medicine is rooted in the understanding that all living things are interconnected, and that health and well-being are supported by a holistic approach that focuses on physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual balance. Traditional indigenous healing practices are often based on the use of plants, herbs, and other natural remedies to treat physical ailments, as well as the use of spiritual ceremonies and rituals to heal emotional, mental, and spiritual imbalances. Reclaiming indigenous medicine and healing practices is also an act of resistance against the oppressive forces of colonization and assimilation that have displaced and disrupted indigenous communities for centuries. By reclaiming traditional healing practices, indigenous peoples can reconnect with their ancestral knowledge systems and begin to restore their cultural identities and heal from the trauma of colonization. In addition to reclaiming traditional healing practices, many indigenous communities have also begun to incorporate modern medical practices into their traditional healing systems. This has enabled them to take advantage of the latest medical advances, while still honoring their traditional beliefs and practices. Finally, reclaiming indigenous medicine and healing practices is also an important way to support the cultural and spiritual needs of indigenous peoples. By reconnecting with their traditional healing practices, indigenous peoples can gain a sense of belonging and build stronger relationships with their families, communities, and the land. By reclaiming indigenous medicine and healing practices, indigenous peoples can take back control of their own health and well-being and begin to heal from the trauma of colonization. These practices are an important part of honoring and preserving indigenous knowledge and traditions, and they can provide a powerful source of healing and resilience for indigenous communities.